Okay, so we'll get into it. We've got a nice full room now, as they say. So if you haven't met me before, my name's Luke Acterstrat. I'm the CEO of Commtract, and I co-founded the business almost 4 years ago now, which has seemed to have flown by. But anyway, there we are. So the purpose of today was, why did we create this webinar? Well, I guess like most businesses, including I'm sure many of you guys, responding to the COVID-19 crisis is something that we were really struggling to work out ourselves. Is now the time to stay quiet, or do people really want to hear from us? That's this kind of conundrum that we've been grappling with. Well, the research does suggest people do want to hear from businesses about how they're planning to manage this crisis. But at the same time, there is a broad spectrum of how this is being felt within the community. Now, obviously, very tragically, there are people who have lost loved ones, and there are people who are really doing it tough, struggling financially. But then on the other hand, there appear to be businesses going about their days relatively unaffected. So it's a very broad spectrum which calls for sensitivity and respect. So how then do we speak to our audience and continue to offer our services but remain sensitive while doing so? This is a question I certainly have. It's a question I continue to grapple with as this crisis unfolds. And I hope our panelists are able to shed some light on this today, given their unique and interesting perspectives. So to introduce the panelists, firstly, we have Brett Levy. Brett's an experienced digital marketing expert. He's the strategic brains behind campaigns for companies like Volvo, Hard Rock, Flight Centre, SodaStream and Chrysler. He has strong experience and understanding of e-commerce. He's worked with fintech businesses and even major South African banks. Brett is across all the latest digital trends being used by businesses, including augmented and virtual reality. And with a large emphasis on digital marketing now more than ever, Brett is very well placed, and we're very lucky to have him joining the discussion today. Next, we have Ian Farrow. Ian is our investor relations and financial comms expert today. His experience covers taxation, financial services, natural resources, energy, R&D, and property, just to name a few. Ian's been with the Commtract community for a few years now, and through our platform has consulted to entities such as the Cavalry Group and also the Property Council of Australia. He's worked with big corporations across Australia, so he understands the pressure on businesses to deliver for investors, and he knows how to communicate with them when things don't go to plan, just as we're seeing now. Last but definitely not least, we have the amazing Jenny O Dowd. She has more than 20 years experience as a highly successful newspaper and magazine editor for publications such as The Australian, The Daily Telegraph and BW Magazine. Jenny understands how to support an organisation's reputation through positive PR and social media, and when it all goes pear-shaped, how to fix it. She is a seasoned comms professional and she understands all aspects of the media inside out. Now, guys, at the end of the webinar, we will be taking questions from the audience. So please send your questions through via the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And if it's directed at one specific panelist, please outline who the question's directed to. All right, so we'll get into it now. We're going to go around the panel and ask a few questions and get some discussion going. So I guess, Ian, to start with you, it's certainly been, to put it lightly, a volatile month in the market. I guess, what are some of the questions you're hearing from investors at the moment?
Well, I think one of the first questions that you're getting from investors is, has my funds manager done the right thing? And they're saying their portfolio is down by a substantial percentage. But then again, I think there's also, if everybody else could see it, why did my funds manager see it? Well, it's hard to say that anybody could have seen it. It's a very real black swan event. I think that investors are broadly it drives a review of their portfolios. It means that they're looking at how events are unfolding. Generally, they're actually, depends upon where they are in their investment life cycle. Generally, they're actually not panicking. They're a little bit forgiving, I guess is the best way to describe it. And they're looking for opportunities. So I think it's clear that some companies are going to, potentially struggle for some time, particularly those that are engaged in travel, that are travel exposed. You wouldn't want to be hoping for an upturn in cruise liner interests anytime soon. But I think there are market participants in mining, big retailers, and technology. So, and just on technology, I think you mentioned it earlier. If we'd all had the foresight to buy Zoom shares in January, we'd be all doing rather well. So, look, I think investors are being selective, and to some extent they're reasonably forgiving, and I think they're waiting.
And so, Ian, would you say now is the time for investors to really, I guess, get that diversification piece down pat? And is it there's sort of a reassessment of it?
They should always be diversified, but I think now may be a time to review the portfolio and see where they see what has potential. You've got some strange outcomes. For example, Ramsay Healthcare is one that I don't like naming them, but you would have thought anybody in health would have been doing rather well, but because they can't do elective surgery at the moment, they're actually taking a bit of a hit. So you just have to take care.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Ian. So Jenny, Edelman published a report this month that identified business as the most reliable source of information ahead of media outlets and even the government. Does that surprise you?
Hi, Luke, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, sadly, Luke, it doesn't surprise me at all. When you see any survey of the most trusted professions in the world, journalists actually rank lower than used car salesmen. So I'm not surprised that people are now going to business for their information. However, I have to say that government and the media have been absolutely fantastic in the way they've been getting the information and communication about this crisis out to everyone. And it's reflected in increasing subs you've seen from media organisations. There's never been more of a time where people want to go to a trusted media source to get their information. The thing I'm loving the best from the media and the government is the live press conferences we get every day from ScoMo and the New South Wales Premier. So, Luke, I can be helping my kids with their homework, I can be walking the dog, I'm playing on Facebook, I get a notification on my phone, and suddenly there's ScoMo. And ScoMo's telling me, what the latest numbers are, when my kids are going back to school, when my kid can play sport again. And that's great. And that's something we've never really seen before. When there's been a live press conference in the past, it's usually just through the television channel. But now the media and the government are providing this on every platform, any platform you have. And I think this is a really thing they should be commended for.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Jenny. So I guess, Brett, given there is this thirst or this appetite to receive information and to be kept in the loop, and people are looking to entities such as business and government to get that reliable information, I guess from a digital perspective, you being our digital expert, what tools are you seeing being used at the moment?
Thanks, Luke, and hi, everyone. So yeah, the problem is our digital world and our personal and business world have now all merged as one. We don't entertain using digital anymore. We now live digitally. Look what we're doing right now. Oops, something in the background got knocked down. But to the question, I'm seeing and believe that email is the way that we should be communicating at the moment. And there's various reasons for it. The first reason is that you can send an email and it's personal. So on that note, don't use big mail shot sends and just pushing a generic mail. So often I get a mail that goes, dear hashtag name, first name, comma, colon, hashtag. Straight away, that brand's gone. I'll send it to junk. I'm talking about email and digital, but there's a company that's going around now that's actually helping people write personal messages, as in with pen and paper, and posting them. So it is a time to communicate. As you mentioned, businesses do want to hear from us, but this is not a time to sell. This is not a time to be sending out messages telling people this is what they need to do, offering special deals, call to actions, etc. This is a time to advise that you're still in business, that you care about them as people and obviously their families. And the other reason why I advocate for email as opposed to text messages or social pushes is that there's no real requirement of time to respond to an email. The recipient will get to that mail when he or she is ready to do so. If you send a text message or WhatsApp or something, you kind of like, if they don't respond within seconds, what's wrong? we're also not aware of what our customers are going through at the moment. We're not aware what their personal situation is. We don't know what they're dealing with. So use email to communicate. You know, you just lay down the fact that everyone's here. We're all here to care about you, and that when we're ready to come back out into the sun, we'll be here to help you out.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brett. And look, fully agree with that. I mean, the more personalized we can make our communications at the moment, I think, you know, we'll have a really big impact on people, because to be frank, these are pretty impersonal times, you know, when you're stuck at home all day. So the more personalized content is, I think, is a really valid point. So I guess, Jenny, if you just wanted to help us build on that a little bit, you know, there's obviously huge sensitivities at the moment around marketing and PR for that matter. I guess, you know, with your 20 years experience, what are the key things businesses should be mindful of at the moment when they're communicating to customers?
Well, I think, Luke, business just need to be honest. We're all in this together. It's a very strange and unique situation, and, you know, we all want to get out of it, quite frankly. Some businesses have changed, well, the smart businesses, I think, have changed their marketing strategies from a hard sell, which nobody wants at the moment, to more direct communication with their customer. And like, for example, one ad I'm loving at the moment is from Aldi. So Aldi, we know, is the king of the quirky television ad, but they've quickly put on TV a very heartwarming ad where they thank their suppliers, they thank their customers, they thank their staff for putting food on the shelves in a safely manner and therefore on our table. And this is really, really smart marketing and smart communication, because it keeps the Aldi brand first and foremost in our mind throughout this crisis, and probably for Aldi, hopefully, after this crisis. So it's not a time for a hard sell, but it's a time to let your customers know that you're there for them and how you can help them and how you can do this safely.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Jenny. So again, this idea of being very nuanced and being very sensitive seems to be a theme that is emerging from all of our panelists. So Ian, I guess, you know, to point out the obvious again, a lot of downgrades at the moment, significant earnings downgrades. How to advise that? You know, how do we communicate that properly and efficiently, and I guess as best we can? What's your advice on that?
How to be the bearer of bad news? Well, obviously you've got listed companies which have already got obligations for continuous market disclosure, but in a general sense, I think every company has to be open and transparent. I think they need to be communicating early so that there aren't surprises for investors or, for that matter, other stakeholders. I think your internal communications are also important, because your employees are going to be engaging again with your stakeholders, be they customers, be they shareholders. I think you also need to consider the new methods that are available that various companies and other organisations are trying. So whether it's webinars, whether it's doing to keep investors informed, whether it's doing the online annual general meetings. I mean, it's possibly now a time, in a sense, to be a little bit creative and innovative about how they do communicate this. But look, I think also you've got to keep communicating, keep engaged with your stakeholders, and finally, I think you need to inject some confidence. You know, that we will get through this, that the company will get through this, the business will get through this. There is another, there is another side to this, and encourage people to stick with us.